person on campus, or they continue to receive instruction at home virtually. So there's the exact same schedule for all students. Um, Students are encouraged to bring a mask, but of course, the district is providing a mask for any student that does not have them. In terms of face shields, it's really up to the student if they'd like to do so. All of the classrooms are spaced, or the desks are spaced 6 feet or more apart. There is a video presentation from this past Monday's um, live Teams meeting, in which there's a photo of at least one of the classrooms, if students and parents actually want to view and see what at least one of the classrooms looks like. But if students are more comfortable wearing a mask, then by all means, they're welcome to bring it.
And one more question about Monday morning, and then we'll move on. But if you have questions, please feel free to email me at president@cvhspto.org, or contact Mr. Moss or Mr. Garner or Ms. Matsu at the school. And the question for freshmen on Monday, since they may never have gotten to go to the school before, who will be there, or how will they be helped to find their way around?
Great question. So the majority of our entire employee population will be there. There will be maps, especially for our new students, our freshmen, and our few new sophomore students, so that they know how to locate their rooms. And we will strategically position ourselves to direct students. And basically, there are 4 wings: 2 downstairs, 2 upstairs. And if for any reason throughout the day any student is lost, if they make their way back to the front desk, then someone can assist them from there.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, we'll be moving on. I'll give, but we always appreciate you being here, and we may ask you questions again, so please don't run away. Thank you. So I can talk a little bit about the PTO stuff, a general welcome, and this is a very interesting year. Helen Ghazali, who is our treasurer, will talk about budget and fundraising. Ed Wolf, I saw your name here, so good evening, Ed. It's good to see you. Ed has been working on the corporate fundraising aspect, so if that's something that you're interested in, please talk to Ed. And Maria Castro Calzada, also known as Perrin's mom, is our communications VP this year. She needs lots of help because with school not being in person, all our communications are done by remote. And if a business the size of Carnegie would have a whole department of people working on just that project. So Maria will hopefully be along to tell you more about the kind of help she needs. And then Georgie Silverman, also known as Ginger's mom, is going to talk about volunteering and what volunteering looks like this year. I can introduce myself. I'm the voice because, of course, I wasn't able to turn my camera on just because it's 2020, even though it worked yesterday. I am the mother of a graduated rhino, and in the class of 2020, and I also have a baby rhino. She hates being called that. And her name is Elizabeth, and she's in the freshman class of 2024. Let's see. So that's a little bit about me. The CVHS PTO supports Carnegie through fundraising and volunteering. So that's our mission. We also try very hard to keep parents informed of what is happening at the school and about issues outside our community that still might affect Carnegie Vanguard High. So those are our purposes, and we hope you'll all join in and take part and find some way to help. The PTO does not charge dues. We do just plain old ask you for money. Helen will talk more about that. The way you join the PTO is to go to the vanguardian.org website and put your name in the directory. I believe the minimum information is your name and your student's name and your email address, because we know that everybody is not necessarily wanting all their information out there yes, you do have some choice as to what you allow the public to see, so you can rest assured about that. Carnegie looks different this year. A lot of we should be in person tonight, and we're not. Magnet tours. I know often magnet tours are a way that parents start volunteering. And sorry, that's our cat's auto feeder going off. I see a question, PTO will be virtual or in person in the future? That will really be determined by what's happening with the. I think it is safe to say that when it's safe for students to come back to school, it's also safe for us to come back to school. But one of the first cuts that was made at the very beginning of March was to try to make schools into closed communities and to keep parents and other volunteers out of the school. So we will just have to play that by ear and see what happens. Mr. Moss, do you have any insight on that right now?
I do not. But for those listening, it was actually a district decision to severely limit guests and visitors to the building in order to obviously keep everyone safe. So we are abiding by the district guidelines. I can say that the district has lowered its COVID level from red to orange, which is not as severe, but we're still in a very serious situation. So we are following district guidelines in terms of all safety measures. I would imagine if as the district reevaluates and continues to evaluate the situation, should that COVID level drop to yellow, or I guess green is the best level, then that would open up more opportunities, including for parents to actually visit the building. But as of right now, again, we are the district is severely limiting the number of guests and visitors that actually get past front desk and into other portions of HISD facilities.
Okay, thank you. That leads us to magnet tours, which are going on right now. I checked in with Ms. Mumni a couple of days ago because that is how many parents start volunteering. It's fun. You get to answer questions. And she says that most of her guests at the virtual magnet tours are actually coming through the presentations she does at middle schools. And most of their questions are just about the application process and less about what the school is like. But Carnegie is hosting virtual magnet tours with videos and with some Q&A every Thursday at 1 p.m. And if anybody is interested in helping with parent Q&A, you are welcome to log on to the magnet tour, and hopefully somebody will need to ask you a question about what has your students' experience been like, what has your experience been like. You are still welcome to do that. Another way of volunteering, we have T-shirt pickup tentatively scheduled for October 26th, the second Monday that school is in session in person, because trying to do that on the first day of school would just be chaos. So we worked very hard to move the store online over the summer, and it is accessible through the Vanguardian website. If you have T-shirts or hats, or we now have yard signs for Carnegie Vanguard High School. We have those nifty masks that Mr. Moss was modeling. You can buy those online and pick them up. That's not completely scheduled yet, so please keep watching. But that is tentatively scheduled for roughly around pickup time, which will be at 4:10, right, Mr. Moss? In the afternoon.
That is correct.
Yes. I see a question for the seniors. Is a day planned for school pictures? I can answer that, and the answer is kind of. Stay posted. I know that Ms. Schultz, who is the yearbook coordinator, is working on putting that together. Part of the discussion there is that nobody was happy with last year's pictures, and so she's looking for a new, better photographer. Drop-off is on Main Street. I believe drop-off is going to be in the Circle Drive on Taft Street, correct? So it's the normal front door of the building.
That is correct. There's a little circular drive as you turn onto Taft if you're coming from West Gray. If you're coming from West Dallas, yes, it's towards or working your way up to West Gray, but it's off of Taft.
Okay, thank you. I will close up and keep us moving and hand it off to Helen to talk about money. But I will close by saying right now we have two goals. We have the goal to keep Carnegie together as a community while we are all still semi-quarantined. And we have a goal to be ready to emerge from our quarantine cocoon and hit the ground running when the time comes. So thank you for being here tonight to that effort. I look forward to meeting everybody in person someday. And Helen, can you talk about money, please?
Sure. Welcome. The main point for this PTO meeting is actually to approve our proposed budget, which was shared on our Vanguardian website. As you can see here, this is our PTO website, vanguardian.org. And if you go to About CVHS PTO, under Documents and Forms, if you click that, it will hopefully direct you to the Documents page. And you will see that the PTO budget has been posted there for 2 weeks now. And Maria has been great in sharing that information on our newsletter. And so in order for this meeting to go fast, my section will be short and sweet. So if you want to take a look at the budget, as you see on screen, or if you want to take some time to review it in detail later, I just show you where to access it. And if you have any questions regarding the budget, please do not hesitate to contact me at treasurer@cvhspto.org. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Okay, so in order to approve the budget, I'm going to do it a little differently. I am going to ask that you, okay, if you do not want to approve the budget, please raise your hand. It's difficult for us to count hands virtually, so I find this is probably the best way for us to vote on the budget. So if you do not approve the budget, please raise your hand. You'll see a little menu bar on your screen that has a little hand raised. If you click that, if you do approve the budget, you don't need to do anything. So I'm going to take a minute for you to vote if possible. And let's see. Does anybody have any objection to the budget? Okay, if not, then the proposed budget has proved by a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. And now I want to talk about our Friends and Family campaign. Let me go back. So this year, our Friends and Family campaign has a goal of $60,000. And we've been very blessed so far by our wonderful community who have already contributed $37,836, which is about 63% of our budget. But I wanted to let everybody know that our Friends and Family campaign is all year round, so you can still contribute to our school by donating anytime you want. And you can do so by going to the front page of our vanguardian.org, and you will see this Friends and Family campaign button. Click it, and you can click the Donate Today again, and that will take you directly to the page where you, where you can donate. It also tells you how we have spent our PTO money last year, such as smart TV replacements, teacher stipends, security training, teacher appreciation lunches, any support for student clubs, as well as in need family. So, as I said, we are very grateful for all of our donors so far, and our Vanguardian has a site to thank all of you by putting your name designation online. So I want to thank you all very much for contributing to our Friends and Family campaign. We greatly appreciate your support. We know this is a challenging time, so any dollar that you contribute is greatly appreciated. And as you saw earlier, if you haven't, that Mr. Miles was wearing our wonderful new mask, PTO Carnegie mask, and you can buy that through our CVHS Spirit Gear, which has a button on our front page as well, which will take you directly to our Spirit Gear, and you will see our CVHS mask. And I wanted to highlight another item that just came in, if I can find it, which is our yard sign. I just saw it today and it's really beautiful. So I encourage you to go online and buy our new yard sign to show your support for the school, and to buy our masks to get ready for the in-person teaching. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Georgie.
Oh, Georgie, are you here? It may be that she wasn't able to be here. I talked with her this afternoon. I can tell you a little bit about what Georgie, whoop, okay, I'm not muted, good. I can tell you a little bit about volunteering. We already made a plea for helpers for Maria with all of the technology and communications we need to do. Basically, we want volunteering at Carnegie to be small and fun and manageable and spread out. We do not want you to worry that you are going to sign up for something and end up in charge of it unless you want to be. And again, volunteering, we have a sheet on the website, and that was also passed out in paper packets at the beginning of the year for anybody who came to the textbook pickup. Anybody who's interested in a carpool, that's in volunteering. Anybody who is interested in helping with the school store. Anybody who is interested in communications or fundraising, we've got a place for you. Please email me or email Georgie at volunteers@cvhspto.org. And then I guess we pass off to Maria. Maria, are you here?
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Hi. So I am in charge of communications and membership, and so apparently everyone's heard that I need help. Other than that, I just wanted to go over very quickly some of the things that falls under the umbrella of communications. I've been trying to get a newsletter out every week. I've been working on that. And I don't know, those of you that attended the virtual coffee for the different classes, we try to do a survey at the beginning of the year to try to get a sense of what everybody preferred as far as communication. And by and large, everyone preferred email communication. So with limited time and resources, that's been my focus. So the newsletter goes out in email. If you're not getting the newsletter, there are a few ways to get to the link to sign up for it. You can always just email newsletter@cvhspto.org. But if you see the newsletter in your Facebook group, because you're part of the CVHS communities group, which is not the official school Facebook group. And if I'm not sure, I don't have the screen sharing because I don't think MS Teams likes Mac computers, but Michelle, I think, is doing it for me. Thank you. So if you're part of this Facebook group, You will see that I post the newsletter there every week as well. Whenever you hit the link to go, so that is the update that I sent out with the new link. Every newsletter should have a subscribe tab on it up at the top. Additionally, we now are on Twitter, so that's CVHS PTO. We're also on Instagram, also CVHS PTO, and we are on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. So we're trying to get out there in every way. So if anybody has a particular talent in any of these areas, I would love to have some help. I'm trying to push things out in all these arenas, but some of it is actually really fun. If I had more time, I'd just do this, but I have a job. So another thing that we'd like to kind of organize and streamline some of our database and our membership, which is also kind of under the umbrella of communications and membership. So if you just have time to kind of late at night work on a spreadsheet or something like that, that would be great too. So if you have any ideas, if you have some time or recommendations, I'd love to hear it. And that is all. If Georgie's here, I'll pass off to her.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. We're almost on schedule. And thank you for coming. Thank you everybody for presenting. You guests for listening, and we hope you volunteer. And Mr. Edwards, I think we're ready to hand it over to you. I know that we've seen some questions about, this is the financial aid meeting, right? So the financial aid meeting will now get started.
Yes, you are in the right place, and I think we are actually recording, so this is good. So for those that can't make it or could not attend tonight, you'll be able to listen back. So thank you all for joining us. I wanted to just shout out Ms. Hawes for pitching the idea to join forces. Thank you for the tireless work that you and the board do for our students and parents. And Mr. Moss, I want to commend you and thank you for your tireless leadership as well. If you are here tonight, hopefully by the end of the night, you'll have some sense of calm around paying for college. We have two guests that have graciously volunteered their time to be with us. Nia Rector is a program coordinator at University of Houston. She's going to talk in depth about the FAFSA and the TASFA and hopefully clear up some myths and some misconceptions around applying for FAFSA. And then we have the lovely Iris Alejandro. She is an associate director of financial aid at Rice University, and she'll talk specifically about CSS profile. So we're going to jump right in, and if we can hold our questions to the end, that would be fantastic, just so we can flow through the night, and then I guarantee we'll get back to your questions. So without further ado, Miss Rector, you can go ahead and share your screen, and we'll jump right in. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Hope everybody's having a great evening thus far. Let me get this together. Alrighty. Okay, can everybody see my screen, hopefully?
We're good.
All right. Okay, so today we are going to talk about financial aid, the different types of financial aid, how you actually go about applying, and then where you can get information more about the financial aid process in general. So basically what financial aid is, it's money that comes from a source other than family members to assist with the cost of attending college or a career school. The different sources of aid can come from the federal government, the state, they can also come from the different colleges, and then there's also private sources such as different companies or organizations as well. So some myths that surround financial aid, one is that college is too expensive. Only the neediest students can only receive financial aid, which is not correct. neediest students, in addition to non-need students, can receive financial aid. It just depends on the type of financial aid assistance that they are going to receive. Only students with high financial need. My parents make too much money. Even though that if that is the case, it's always good to fill out the application because of other types of funds that may need the FAFSA information to qualify for those funds. The form is too hard to fill out. This is a myth in the view of that they have made various strides over the past few years to make the FAFSA form extremely easy to fill out. I fill it out for both of my children who are in high school, going into college, one at college now. So the questions are really easy to answer, and they make finding the information really easy as well. The FAFSA only is for grants and scholarships. It's for loans as well. I only have to complete the FAFSA one time. So with the FAFSA, it opens up every academic year or every October 1st of every year for the following academic year. So October 1st, the 2021-2022 FAFSA opened up, and you are able to do that now. And then the last myth that is the most mythized is that the expected family contribution number is the amount that I would have to pay, which that is incorrect. That the financial expected family contribution number typically just has to do with determining need-based eligibility. However, it is not the amount that you are expected to pay. So different types of financial aid ranges from scholarships, grants, work study, and loans. Scholarships, of course, are free money. These funds do not have to be repaid back. Most colleges do award scholarships from their own funding. That's why they use grades and test scores to determine eligibility amounts. And then if the colleges that your students are attending, if they don't use test scores, then you would need to, converse with the college to see what they do use in lieu of those test scores. But most scholarships are awarded based on academic achievements, interests, career plans, ethnicity, background, and financial need, excuse me. So they can look at, different scholarships based on any type of those criteria to meet. Grants are also free money awarded based on need. So that's where the FAFSA expected family contribution number does come into play, because that number helps to determine the need-based eligibility. Work study is basically just allowing the student an opportunity to work on campus at a part-time capacity, also gain, experience, and then those funds can use to pay for other educational expenses that the student may need, such as books or supplies and things. And of course, our not as much favorited item is loans. Yes, they can be used to pay toward educational expenses. However, they do have to be paid back. This is money that is borrowed. Subsidized has low interest. The interest rate for the subsidized is 2.75%, for the subsidized and unsubsidized this academic year is 2.75%. However, some loans do require that a cosigner be needed, such as like private loans or potential parent plus loans if the parent does apply. So applying for the FAFSA application, so you want to start by applying for your FSA ID. The FSA ID is basically the username and password that you're going to use to complete the application, and this is your electronic signature in a sense. So students who are eligible to do the FAFSA or apply for an FSA ID are U.S. citizens, permanent residents, or eligible non-residents. They should complete a FAFSA and obtain an FSA ID. Now, you want to apply for your FSA ID if you have not already done so, you want to apply for it, earlier than you would want to complete the FAFSA, because once you apply for the FSA ID, if this is your first time doing so, it is going to submit the information to the Social Security Administration to verify that the information you put in matches up with their database, such as your social, your name, date of birth, all that good stuff. that information, and it does take a few business days to get a response back saying, yes, we've confirmed this is who you are. Now you're able to go on and do your application. So you just want to make sure you allow at least a few business days for that process to happen. Then you would be able to go on to the FAFSA to actually apply for the application. And parents, if you have multiple children, you only need one username and password for yourself, and then you're able to log that username and password into, multiple FAFSAs for different children. But you just want to make sure that your FSA ID is different from your student's FSA ID, because you will need to log in separately, and it won't work if the username, email, password is all the same thing for both your student and yourself. So all the that you will need to complete the upcoming FAFSA application, your driver's license, if you do have one, the 2019 tax records, any records of untaxed income from 2019, your FSA ID, which is used to electronically sign into the portal, a list of all of the colleges that you are interested in attending. Your FAFSA will be sent to these colleges. You can list at least up to 10 colleges to send the FAFSA application to. If you have more than 10 schools that you would want to send it to, what you would do is send to the first 10 schools, and then once those have successfully processed, you will log back in to do a correction and then remove those schools, input the next 10 schools or so that you would want to apply to. Also, they do have instructions as far as with a worksheet. So if you have questions or need to review any of the information, or you just like to, view it on paper, they do have a FAFSA on the web worksheet, so you can prepare your answers, get organized with all of the information that you would need for the application. So the website is studentaid.gov. Again, the application opens up every October 1st of every year for the following academic year. At this time, the FAFSA uses prior tax year information, which is why the application is calling for the 2019 tax info. The FAFSA determines the expected family contribution number, which helps to determine the financial need. And then so you would be able to, once your taxes are filed for the 2019 year, which they should be, or approaching any, deadlines. I believe I've heard that some deadlines are approaching for 2019 filing. But once your taxes have been filed, and I believe there's either like a 2 to 3 week processing time for electronic, or 6 weeks for if you have to mail it in, then you'd be able to utilize the data retrieval tool, which is highly suggested. That way it just imports the information from the IRS into the FAFSA. But if you do need help to do the FAFSA application, they do have a phone number, and they have a chat feature that you'd be able to utilize to assist with questions about the application if you're having issues. And of course, you want to make sure that you watch out for any confirmation pages once you have completed the FAFSA application. They do have an app as well. So if you're on the go, you can't sit in front of a computer, you can download the app, mystudentaid.app, and then you're able to do the FAFSA application on a mobile device as well. So utilizing the data retrieval tool within the FAFSA application, once it gets to the financial section, and they'll have a financial section for the parent and a financial section for the student. If the parents did file a tax return, you will answer the questions accordingly. Based on how you answer the question will determine the eligibility, if you will, if you can do the link. I believe for like a married filing separately, you're not able to use the data retrieval tool, but for single, head of household, or married filing jointly, those statuses would be eligible to do the link. So once you come to that section, you would click on, once you enter the information, it's saying, okay, you're going to be eligible to do the data retrieval. Here's the blue button. So you'll click on the link to IRS. And then it's going to bring you to this next window to say, hey, just want to let you know you're leaving the FAFSA, and we're going to be transferring over to the IRS data retrieval part of the web's portal. This just lets you know that you are now on the IRS's portion of the portal to obtain the tax information. And so when you're in this particular screen to get your federal income, you want to make sure that you have your return with you, just to ensure that the address, how it's filed on the return, you type it in exactly how it is on the return, and that way there's no errors, and then they can find the information. Once everything has been successfully input into the system and they're able to find your information, you're going to check the first option, which would indicate to transfer my tax information into the FAFSA form. You're going to check the box, and then it's going to highlight the button to transfer now, and then you will click transfer now. Once you do that, it will bring you back to the FAFSA application, and it will let you know that everything has been successfully transferred from the IRS for that particular year in question. So in this case, anything that has a money amount that was, being retrieved from the IRS, it will not say a number. However, it will say transfer from the IRS. And so it won't allow you to update that information because the IRS information has already been input for you. And then at that point, the only thing that you would need to worry about are the fields that do have numbers. And if you do have those items, you would input an amount. If you don't, you would leave it at 0. And so then after you complete the FAFSA, the financial information for the student, if there was any, and then you would go to the signing and submit, you're going to check for your email from FAFSA just to let you know that everything was submitted successfully. You're going to get what's called the student is going to get what's called a student aid report. The student aid report is just a summation of all the information that you put into the FAFSA application. It also gives information about if the student was selected for verification, if they have to submit citizenship information to any schools that they have applied to for additional information to be verified. So the student aid report will also let you know if there was any errors. So you definitely, you and your student will want to review that information and that also allows you to correct any mistakes. Also, you want to meet, any deadlines as far as with the FAFSA. Different states have different deadline dates for submission of the FAFSA application. So you definitely want to check with the institution that you are applying with to make sure that you're submitting by the deadline. So now we're getting into the TASFA application. The TASFA application is the Texas application for state aid. So this particular application is for students who are undocumented or are international students who at least have been at a Texas high school 36 months prior to entering college. So they are undocumented or international, but they are classified as Texas residents. And then this application is used by financial aid administrators and most colleges and universities that accept it to determine a student's eligibility for state financial aid. The application opens up October 1st, same as the FAFSA application. And then I'll go into a little bit about where do you obtain the information, what does it look like, and what the process looks like for TASFA. So where do you get the TASFA application? You can go online to collegeforalltexans.com. You would be able to print out the either the English or the Spanish version of the application along with the notes. The notes will basically kind of give you some type of instruction on how to find the information or what information should be put in these particular fields or boxes. I know for speaking just for University of Houston, unfortunately, we don't accept the Spanish version of the form. So some students sometimes will just use the Spanish and convert it over to English and the English form and then submit the English form. Also, we do have an online application for the TASFA. So students can log into a portal, create a username and password, and then complete the application electronically as well. The questions are very similar to the FAFSA application. And again, just be sure to contact the college in question that your student is applying to check on the deadlines for submission for the TASFA funding. Unfortunately, with TASFA funding, those funds are extremely limited because they do come from the state. So typically they are awarded on a first come, first serve. So you want to be sure to, submit any and all document application as soon as possible. They will require the parent information. If the parent information is not available, so if a student is in a situation where they don't have access due to various circumstances, they can come in, they can call in or virtually visit with a financial aid advisor for U of H or at any institution for that matter to discuss their circumstances as to why they are unable to submit parent information, and then they would discuss the next course of action. That way that they can be considered for any TASFA funding. Now, on the TASFA application, it will ask for untaxed income. If the amount or the information does not pertain to you, be sure to submit 0 or NA for those boxes. For TASFA applications, a lot of these applications are commonly incomplete because the field is not filled in. Whether it applies to you or not, just be sure to put something there. Put a 0, put an A, or put an amount if it does apply to your situation. So under the household information, be sure to include everyone. Your family supports at least 50%. If your parent information was required, the parent is required to sign. So that could look like, mom and dad is married and then it's just the one student. If mom and dad are now divorced, but let's just say dad is remarried and the student primary provider is the father, then it's just based on the father's income, the stepmother's income, and then whatever, dependents or children that they are providing at least 50% of their support to is who you would list in this section. And then, of course, the parent's signature as well if the student is under the age of 24. Also, the residency affidavit needs to be submitted for TASFA applications. This is to confirm the Texas residency. It does have to be submitted every year for the application. For U of H, we have students submit the affidavit to the registrar's office. Some do go to the financial aid office, but it does depend on the college that the student is applying to. So you would just want to check with that institution to see what their process is and where or with whom they would need to submit the Texas residency with. So the TASFA process is extremely manual. So students would basically print out the application, fill it out, bring it to the financial aid office, or they go online to complete it, the application, but they will still have to submit their tax documents, whichever is asking for. So this for 2021, 2022, the tax documents needed would be for 2019. So it's going to be the TASFA application itself, the 2019 taxes if the parents filed, and of course if the students filed. For males, selective service information is required. So if they have applied for selective service, they need to print out their confirmation or their card, and then also the residency affidavit. Then that information gets reviewed by the financial aid administrators in the office, and then they enter this information into the system, and it calculates the expected family contribution number for any eligibility of any state funds, either through TPEG, Texas Grant, TEOG, TEG, Texas Work Study, Cal, and private loans. Not all institutions participate in these particular programs, so you just want to make sure for TASFA processing, you would just check which funding you would have access to upon completing your application. So typically what happens next is the student would receive an email stating additional information is needed, and that could be for verification, that could be for citizenship, that could be for just different codes that may come up on the FAFSA. If no additional information is required, then the awards will be posted to the student. So they should see that, so for the upcoming academic year, they should see that extremely early. So probably starting spring 21 is when the fall 21 students should start seeing some awarding happening. Schools will always try and give you the best, the free money first. All free money is awarded typically on a first come, first served basis, which is why it is heavily suggested you try to submit your application as soon as possible. That way you are considered for, the maximum amount of funding that may be available. And then you must log in, or the student must log into their portal to accept or decline each type of financial aid that is offered. So the maximums for this current academic year, fall 20 and spring 21, the federal Pell Grant is $6,345. That's if a student is enrolled full-time each semester. Direct loans is about $5,500. This does increase at different grade levels. So for the subsidized loans, there is 0 interest while the student is in school and during periods of deferment. And then unsubsidized loan, the interest does accrue throughout the life of the loan. There are no credit checks for either of these particular loans, and you don't have to make any payments while you are in school. However, and upon graduation and upon repayment, there will be special repayment plans that you can set up with the loan servicer after graduation. The interest rates for this academic year is 2.75%, and they do change every academic year. Federal work study will just depending on the funds available to the school and the student's need. So that expected family contribution number determining the financial need will play a factor in whether a student can receive federal work study funds or not. Additional funding would be the Federal Plus loan. Parents, this is a loan that you can apply for. If the loan is approved, this loan will be in your name. You will be responsible for repayment of this loan. However, the funding would go toward the tuition and fee expenses towards your student. If the Parent Plus loan is denied, then that loan will then be the responsibility of the student for them to repay upon graduation or completion of their education. And then, they would be responsible and they would just receive a certain amount based on their grade level classification. Again, if the loan is approved, there are options to defer the payment while the student is in school. Otherwise, the parents would start repaying their loans within 60 to 90 days of the funds being distributed. But that information will be set up with the loan servicer once it has been assigned. And of course, there are private education loans. These loans would be in the student's name for them to apply to, but they would need a credit-worthy cosigner. There are cosigner release options with different lenders, and it is based on credit. There also is Texas aid. So the state of Texas does provide aid. These money amounts are for these particular grants will vary per student depending on allocation and how much funding the institution is given to supply to the students. Texas grant, Texas Public Education Grant, TEOG, and TEG. So these particular funds, like I was explaining earlier, not every school participates with awarding these particular funds. So you will just check with the institution that you're applying to see if they participate with any of those programs. Also, a lot of institutions are participating in guarantee or promise programs. So for University of Houston, we have a Cougar Promise, where if you qualify for Texas grant, federal Pell Grant, those two grants in combination would then cover all, 100% of mandatory tuition and fees. And then we also have like tuition assistance, where if your income is, I think, above 65,001, you would receive some type of grant assistance towards your tuition and fees. So definitely look into whichever institution that your student is applying to see if they have any guarantee or promise programs, and then also research the various state exemptions that may be available. So if you fall within those categories for any exemptions, you can, submit that information to the institution if they participate in those programs. And you can research those with collegeforalltexans.com. So it's something from your 2019 taxes different from your current situation. So with this, the FAFSA application and the TASFA application can only take into consideration the prior year. However, with the pandemic and, just different life changes, that's what's going on at this time, your 2019 income situation may not be what's representative of today. So with that, there are professional judgment and or special circumstances processes that the school has authority to take into consideration, and allowing those things to be taken into consideration to try to find additional assistance. So with that, it could be due to lost wages or income changes. If you receive like a one-time lump sum, IRA rollover, if you had extreme medical bills, payments that were not covered by insurance, any nursing home expenses that were not covered by insurance, childcare costs. These are not the only, circumstances that we consider, but these are most of the ones that we see that are submitted to our office. Not an option are like credit card balances, vacation, large mortgages, or large car payments. But like anything that was maybe involuntary or was one-time things that are not happening right now, or if the income situation from 2019 is significantly changed, then the institution has the authority to take into consideration those circumstances. And there's an appeal process, and the student would just contact the financial aid office at that institution to see what the process for that would be. So more information in regard to FAFSA would be studentaid.gov. There's information about different aid programs, and then there's also links to scholarship and college searches. Again, if you have questions or want assistance in trying to complete the FAFSA application, you can call them at the 1-800-4FED-AID to get information about the programs and help with FAFSA. Also, they do have a chat feature as well, and you can email them to get more information and or help with that particular process. They are also listed on social media, so Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Federal Student Aid. So if you wanted to, follow them or, get notifications about any updates or changes, you're more than welcome to follow them on these platforms. Some other important resources. So we've listed like our scholarship information, the studentaid.gov. FINAID.org is a great resource for information. fastweb.com, College Board as well, Project Guide Houston. So just different important resources that students can look up, different scholarship opportunities, loan repayment, just, information about financial aid in general. And so with University of Houston, we do offer virtual appointments. So students can go to our webpage, and under the financial aid information, they could set up a virtual appointment to speak with a financial aid advisor. If you do have questions in regard to the FAFSA, we can definitely answer those questions. Unfortunately, we just wouldn't be able to complete it with the student, but we can definitely answer questions in regard to that. Or if they are, coming to University of Houston and they have questions, they are more than welcome to set up a virtual appointment or to contact us over the phone. And thank you so much. I know that was a lot of information, but thank you so much for enduring. And I will kick it back over.
Thank you, Nia. Once again, I'm Iris Alejandro, and I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second. Wait, I chose the wrong one. Hold on a second. I do apologize. It signed me out. I'm back here. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, can you see the presentation? Darnell, thumbs up. Okay.
We're good.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So today we're going to talk about the CSS profile and overview. In 1920, Rice students received over 81.5 billion in need-based aid, grants, and scholarships. So again, this session will provide an overview of the CSS profile and important dates for you to keep in mind when applying for need-based aid at Rice and its peers. So what is the CSS profile? It's an online application for non-federal student financial aid. It's very similar to the FAFSA, but a lot lengthier than the FAFSA. It's used by nearly 400 colleges, universities, professional schools, and scholarship programs to award more than $9 billion in grants. It provides a thorough picture of your family finances than the FAFSA allows. And again, the reason for that is because in comparison to FAFSA, it goes over the same information as FAFSA, but it goes into detail about your assets. And another benefit about it is that it also allows you, and it gives you a section where if your family is going through extenuating circumstances, you have the option to notate that in the CSS profile. And this is usually helpful for whatever college you're applying to, because this is the first insight that the financial aid advisors, counselors will have access to your application and read if there's something going on. And it may be completed by U.S. citizens and permanent residents, DACA, undocumented, and international students. So what can you expect? The CSS profile will ask you questions about you, your parents, and your family's financial information. It'll also automatically save your responses on the application as you go along. It's similar to FAFSA. Again, on the left-hand side, you'll have little check marks that let you know once each section is completed. You'll also have the option to go back to a certain section if you skip it. Because again, it's lengthier. So and you can even take a break when take a break if it's taking longer than usual. And you can actually sign in and complete the CSS profile with your College Board account if you already have one. If you already took the SATs, and it'll be the same account that you use for that to log into this. And just like FAFSA, you also have the option to just click and ask for help if needed on the CSS profile. Things to have with you when you complete the application is going to be your 2019 income tax returns, your 2019 W-2s, forms, and other income records. I would also recommend that you have business schedules if you have K-1s, corporate tax returns, whatever you have that's that it's attached to your tax return. Make sure you have the complete tax return, because again, it does go into detail as far as all your income and assets. If you have any untaxed income and benefits, make sure you also have that, such as SSI benefits, because it will also ask you about that. And make sure to have bank, investment, and other asset statements with you. It is a lengthier application. It does take a bit longer than the FAFSA, but again, it's only to understand your finances better. There is a fee for the CSS profile. For the first college that you send it to is a $25 fee for the application. Any additional school that you add is $16. This does not limit you to 10 schools that you can send it to. However, there is a fee for every school that you add. You can pay with a debit or credit card. And then you may also, for those of you that need a fee waiver, it automatically applies a fee waiver if you received an SAT fee waiver, or if your parents' income is approximately $45,000 or less, it'll automatically do it for you at the end of the application. Or if also you're a orphan or a ward of the court under the age of 24. So that's that. Majority of the schools, or I'm not going to say majority, some of the schools may require both custodial and non-custodial parents. If your parents are divorced or separated. At Rice, we do consider both parents. If your parents are divorced or separated, you will have to complete a CSS profile with your custodial parent first. Allow that to process within a day or two. And then what we recommend is filling out the second CSS profile with your non-custodial parent, or have that parent fill it out. The neat thing about having both a custodial and non-custodial parent is that the information is confidential. So the custodial parent is not going to have any information with the non-custodial. And just like the schools, we will not share any of that information because, again, it's confidential for both the custodial and the non-custodial parents. Now, if there is a situation where there's no contact with the non-custodial parent or there's an extenuating circumstance, the CSS profile does have a non-custodial parent waiver form, and you are able to submit that to IDOC, and make sure you attach supporting documentation, because what happens is when we review the non-custodial parent waivers and we present them to the committees, usually they require supporting documentation, and usually the more supporting documentation, the better the chances are that that appeal gets approved. So you complete the CSS profile, and then after you're done with that, then at the end it'll give you the option to submit your documents to IDOC. IDOC is a portal. You won't have access until after you're done with the CSS profile. And that portal is where you upload all your tax information, verification worksheets, W-2s, if the school is requesting them. At RISE, we will request everything from you. So now that I talked a little bit about the CSS profile, I want to take a moment to highlight the RISE investment. Determining the right school comes down to several factors. Often the biggest one is affordability. At RISE, we believe that talent deserves opportunity. For domestic students, we offer need-blind admissions, which means we do not consider your finances when we review your application. Additionally, RISE is a need-based institution, which means we offer financial aid based on financial needs. Students receiving aid under the RISE investment will have all demonstrated need met without any loans. So if you qualify for the RISE investment, we usually only offer federal work study and RISE grants and Pell Grant if you're eligible for that. Full tuition scholarships and grants will be offered to students from middle income families under a new financial aid plan titled the RISE investment. Under the RISE investment program, full tuition scholarships will be awarded to degree-seeking undergraduates with a family's income between $65,000 and $130,000 who are eligible to receive need-based financial aid. In addition, students with families' income between $130,000 and $200,000 will receive scholarships covering at least half of their tuition. Support for students from low-income families will also be significantly enhanced under the program, and students with families in $5,000 will receive grant covering not only their full tuition, but also their mandatory fees and room and board. This is the RISE investment. Now, if your income exceeds $200,000, we still offer the demonstrated need. So what that means is we take the cost of attendance minus your expected family contribution, and whatever need is left, that's what we award in grants and self-help aid. Okay, another thing that I like to talk about is deadlines. It's always important to keep up with the deadlines. Notice that at RISE, the admission application does not have the same deadline as the financial aid. So it's very important to keep in mind when you're completing both the admission application and the financial aid application. And I'm sure that this is maybe the cause at other universities. So the admission application for early decision is due November 1st for RISE, and for regular decision is January 1st. Now, our financial aid applications for early decisions, they're not due until November 15th, meaning that all documents should already be uploaded to OnBase and available for us to review. Then regular decision deadline is February 1st. Another important thing about meeting priority deadlines at RISE, if you submit all your documentation by the deadlines, we guarantee an award offer by the time you receive your admission notice. So this is why it's also important to keep in mind the deadlines that we have out there for you. Another thing that I like to recommend to parents and students is to get familiar with the websites of the schools that you're applying to, because every school is going to have their own separate deadlines. And also, majority of the time, you can find everything that you need from each school on their webpage. So that's the overview about the CSS profile, and this is our connected page. If we still have a few moments, I would like to show you how to get to the CSS profile PowerPoint overview on how to complete it. Let me see. Hold on a question. I'm going to stop sharing and let me open the link. Okay, so how do you find the CSS profile? Usually all I do is Google CSS profile, and it's the first one. And this is where where you get to the application. If you get started at the top and you go to the CSS profile overview, it's gonna get loud. So let me pause it if it comes to you. So this is what the PowerPoint looks like. I'm not going to click next, but it literally gives you an overview of what the CSS profile is going to go through, and it's probably no more than 5 minutes. If you have a chance, I encourage you to look at it, and then it'll walk you through it. That's the first thing I wanted to show you. The second thing I wanted to show you is our webpage, and I want to show you our webpage so you can see where to find the financial aid information. Most of the times, any school that you look to, admissions and financial aid right next to each other or around each other. At Rice, we have it together. So if I click on admission and aid and I go to the financial aid webpage, we have our own checklist, and it'll give you deadlines as well. And again, a majority of the schools will have deadlines for you to look at, and so you can be ready and prepared. So I go to applying for financial aid. I go to first year domestic students, whichever is the case you can apply for, and it'll still give you the options here. What I like to show you here is that we have both early decision and regular decision. And again, this also gives you the deadlines of when our financial aid applications are due. The neat thing about it too is that if you click on the requirements, it'll link you directly to the applications that you need to go to. So if you can't remember what the CSS profile webpage is, it's fine. You can come back to our financial aid page, and then it gives you the order, the CSS, the FAFSA, CSS profile, and then IDOC. Again, you're not going to have access to IDOC until you complete the CSS profile. Another, advice that I like to give to all families is that again, Nia mentioned it earlier, it's very important that you complete the application with the correct name and social security number. Make sure you have all your necessary documents with you, because what happens after you complete that application, it's going to send your information to the Social Security Administration and verify that it's you. So I would like to emphasize to make sure you have your information, because you need to have the correct social security number, correct date of birth, and correct name. If not, it usually tends to cause a back and forth with the financial aid office to verify that the student is indeed the student and require additional information from you. But those are just some of the tips that I have for you, and that concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you, ladies. So that concludes our presentation, the formal part of it. Does anyone have any questions? I did see questions in the chat, and I think we have addressed them. Mr. Coleman mentioned the use of net price calculators. That's always a great idea. Each university college has a net price calculator. You can put in basic information, your income, the student's grades and profile, and it'll give you an estimate of the cost of attendance. So as you're researching and trying to figure out if you can afford to go to the school, always use net price calculator. So that's a great point. Thank you for that mention.
And the net price calculator is required by all schools to have on their webpage. So every school has one. And ours does have the Rice Investment Grant embedded in our net price calculator.
Any questions, folks? I know we covered a lot of information tonight. I don't expect you to remember it all. The recording will be made available. And I did see a question about the PowerPoint. Will we be able to make the PowerPoints available to everyone?
Even if you don't have the PowerPoint, you have the recording, so you can pause and keep going from there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm
Let's
seeing a
see.
question about somebody who accidentally did the FAFSA too early and they got asked for their 2018 tax return. Does that person need to fill it out again, is what they're asking?
Yes, for 2021, 2022. Yes. Because right now there's going to be two applications open, which is the 2019, 2020, 2021. Sorry.
Yeah.
The 2021 is open right now, and then the 21, 22 opened October 1st. So yes, you will need to log back into the FAFSA portal to do the 21, 22 application. Yes,
And you'll use your 2019 tax return with that one.
yes, correct. And yes, the parent does need a separate FSA ID from their student.
May I have a question for the rice?
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess I missed some slides because of my internet. Can you summarize for the qualification for the financial aid for rice? Because I once saw the news a couple of times that is based on the family income. Is there other factors affect that as well?
Yes, when we process for the rice investment grant, we look at both taxable and non-taxed income. So it's both of that. It's all your income, your total income, and your assets. And again, our net price calculator is available for you to complete. We also have the My Intuition. If you don't, the net price calculator is a link to your application. But if you want to get a range of what you may be eligible for, the My Intuition calculator is only 5 questions. It takes no more than 3 minutes and you're done with it. But that does give you a wide range of what you may be eligible for. If you like the figures that you see in My Intuition, then I strongly recommend you complete the net price calculator so you can get a more accurate idea of what you may be eligible for.
Okay, Mr. Edwards, I see a parent asking. Go ahead.
On the chat window, the net price calculator and the My Intuition calculator.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Would you please send the links for them, or is it just Google?
Yes, let me look for it right now and I'll add it to the chat.
Mr. Edwards, maybe there's there's a question in the chat that maybe you could address. A parent is asking less about financial aid than how many colleges should a student apply to, and what insight can you offer?
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at different articles or whatnot. I say it's safe to apply to 6 to 10 schools. You can go above that, but you kind of want to narrow it down and do a deep dive into beyond if they have the major. I would reach out to admissions and ask detailed questions about campus culture, whatever's important to you in terms of learning style, campus culture, and the things that will help you to succeed or whatnot. But I'd say between 6 and 10, and if you can have a balanced list, maybe a couple of reach schools, some definitely some safeties, and then some match schools. So two to three in each category, and I think you will be okay.
I see another question. What is the FAFSA early deadline for U of H? Ms. Rector, could you address that, please?
Yes, it is January 15th.
Thank you. While we've got parents listening here, Mr. Edwards, could you talk a little bit about Carnegie's, because I know that Carnegie has schools come and talk to students. The PTO is working with the college counselors to get some of those visits publicized.
Yes.
But can you talk about that, please? Because the juniors and seniors do have a chance to interview on campus, basically, is what it comes down to.
Yes. So currently we do have rep visits through Naviance, and I know that Mr. Frau and Ms. Chapman, they've sent invites to I believe all students, and you're able to sign up and sit in on these meetings early. I mean, especially if you're 9th through 11th grade, so that you can get insight into what the college has to offer, and you can ask those questions before you become a senior and start to apply. So take advantage of those moments where you can engage colleges early on. And then once we become, when you become a senior, then that's when I can work with you and we can do a deep dive into the application process itself. I also wanted to share something real quick, if I may share my screen. Let's see if I can find it. You can take a screenshot of this. If you're interested, parents, students, doesn't matter. If you're interested in meeting with me, you can book an appointment with that link there. There's my Google Voice number. And I am here to support you with FAFSA, TASFA, CSS profile, college list, you name it, even essay editing. Just reach out to me and we'll get together via Teams. Okay, I'll leave that up for a few moments. Were there any other questions, Ms. Hawes? Did I address your question?
I see a hand up. I don't know if Ms. Aziz has a question.
Okay. Let's see. This is profile only for private schools.
Most of the time, the CSS profile is required on private schools, but again, I would recommend you look at the school's webpage because not all schools require the CSS profile. There is a list on the CSS on College Board's webpage of 400 schools. But again, if you already narrow down your school choices, just look on their webpage. Majority of them have a checklist as well.
Okay, and I am, oh darn, here we go. The PTO, there we go, paste. Sorry, I talk out loud, and that ought to send it. We've been working to publicize, there's the link, school visits. So oftentimes, that's posted in the hallway for the students to walk back and forth and see which schools are coming and, what days they're here. And that's something else that we've had to think through differently because we're not in that in-person situation where they can walk by and see the posters and who's coming. But I know Ms. Matsu and Ms. Chapman and Mr. Frau have that information. Mr. Edwards has that information. Ms. Aziz, I see you've got your hand up.
You can.
Sorry, my question was answered earlier. Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, I can say from the PTO perspective, the next PTO meeting will be on the evening of November 19th. It will probably still be virtual, and our program will be our new counselor, Ms. Reed, who works with communities in schools, and she is new to Carnegie. She has agreed to come and talk to us about what support she can offer our students, because as the school has grown, Ms. Chapman and Mr. Frau spend almost all their time on college and grades and schedules. And so Ms. Reed is really there for student support, and she's going to come and talk to us about that. And Ms. Alejandro and Ms. Rector, thank you so very much for coming and sharing your information with us. We really appreciate your time. And
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Edwards,
And
thank you too.
is it okay to answer the last question in the chat?
Absolutely.
So if your student is a sophomore, you don't need to complete the application now. The application that we mentioned earlier for 21-22 is for seniors now. So if your student is a sophomore, you still need 2 more years.
Okay, are there any more questions?
No other questions, but I do have one last thank you to Mr. Seha for joining us this evening to make sure everything ran smoothly with technology. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes. No, and I see a question too. What about juniors? That same really applies. This is information for everybody, but you only fill out the forms once you are actively applying, correct?
That's correct.
FAFSA does have a forecaster. I'm not sure if they are publicizing it really anymore, but they used to have a forecaster that you could do as a junior, and then once you become a senior and start applying, it would then transfer the information from your forecaster to your actual application. So juniors can do that for right now, and then seniors will be applying for the 21-22 application now.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. Are we all good to say good night then? Oh, Mr. Moss?
Just one more thing.
Good night.
Go Astros.
I see you're wearing your Astros shirt.
I am. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good night,
Thank
everyone.
you so
Thank
much
you.
for being here.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, ladies.